Today's devotional is about how a Christian should participate in Halloween, if at all. And it's been debated for close to 2,000 years because the practice of Halloween has gone back for millennia. When pagan religions used to practice putting on makeup and costumes and all kinds of things to basically try to hide from evil spirits. Centuries later, when the Christian church was becoming a little bit more mature and a little bit more developed and had its own structure, Christianity tried to basically take over or Christianize this practice that happened by these pagan religions, and basically chose November 1st to be a holiday for all the saints who had been killed, martyred, or died. And so the day before November 1st, October 31st, became known as All Hallows Eve, otherwise known as Halloween. So Christians have tried to appropriate this ancient practice. And yet, because there are some elements of Halloween that are rooted in some of these ancient pagan practices, there are many people that see Halloween as a glorification of evil or death or the devil himself. And so there have been differences of opinions among Christians for many, many hundreds of years over what to do on this particular date. And as we think about it in the 21st century, a date that has become known as somewhat of an American holiday. And so I think I want to point us first to what Paul has to say in 1 Corinthians 10 to try to frame this question. Paul is writing to the Corinthian church and trying to teach them how to live among pagans, how to live in the midst of those who are unbelievers. Let me start with verse 27. This is 1 Corinthians 10, verse 27. Paul writes, if one of the unbelievers invites you to dinner and you are disposed to go, eat whatever is set before you without raising any question on the ground of conscience. But if someone says to you, this has been offered in sacrifice, then do not eat it, for the sake of the one who informed you and for the sake of conscience. I do not mean your conscience, but his. For why should my liberty be determined by someone else's conscience? If I partake with thankfulness, why am I denounced because of that for which I give thanks? So what Paul is saying is that if an unbeliever invites you over to their home, go. If they put a piece of meat in front of you and you don't know where it came from, even if it came from a sacrificial ritual earlier, and you're comfortable with it, if your conscience is clear and you can eat it with thanksgiving, do so. However, if somebody else, probably a brother, points out that it was sacrificed and they're offended by it, Paul would then say, don't eat it for the sake of his conscience, not for your conscience. And so I think what I want to point out here is that conscience is the defining issue. My conscience and somebody else's conscience. If my conscience is clear and I can act in thanksgiving without any concerns about my relationship with the Lord, I am free. Paul says I have the liberty. I am free to act. However, if my actions impinge on somebody else's conscience, I should be mindful of that and be quick to cease that activity for their sake, not so much for my sake. The main thing I think Paul would address here is that he would say, go to the unbeliever's house. Nowhere in here does he say, don't go to the unbeliever's house. So it's not where we're at that matters so much in this particular passage, but what we're doing. And so to apply that to Halloween, without a definitive message from the Lord on Halloween, which is nowhere mentioned in the Bible, we have to employ wisdom, and we have to employ what we know. And I think based on this passage, Paul might say something like, Halloween is fine, but if your activities during Halloween impinge on somebody else's conscience, then we should be careful what we're doing. So just like it's completely fair and completely right to go to an unbeliever's house, it's probably okay to participate in Halloween. But if it's wrong to eat something at somebody else's house that's going to impinge on somebody's conscience, then it would be wrong for us to participate in Halloween in such a way that it impinges on somebody's on their conscience. Therefore, I think the lesson here might be Halloween is safe for us. It is fair for a Christian to participate in it. But what we do during Halloween matters, especially as it impacts somebody else's conscience. Somebody might be offended if you have a Dracula costume, or if you've prepared your house with cobwebs and seem to be glorifying evil. But they're probably not going to be offended if there are crosses carved into pumpkins, if there are tracts that are distributed with the candy and so forth. So Christians can either reject Halloween, or they can try to redeem it, or they can try to participate in it without even thinking anything about God. The person who rejects Halloween and pursuing holiness is fine, and their conscience is clear. Their pursuit of holiness glorifies God. But I think the person who tries to practice Halloween in such a way as to redeem it or to use it to advance God's kingdom is also fine. The person I'm most concerned with is the person who practices Halloween and has no concern for God's role in it at all. That person is not thinking in a theological way. That person is not even thinking about God. At the end of the day, I think Christians can hurt themselves most if the one who rejects Halloween accuses those who are trying to redeem Halloween of being non-Christian or unholy. And conversely, if the ones who are trying to redeem Halloween accuse those who reject Halloween of having their heads stuck in the sand and unwilling to engage this world and therefore aren't fulfilling the Great Commission. When those two accuse each other of not doing the right thing, we have a lose-lose situation in Christianity. By contrast, when each of them respect what each other is doing for God's glory, we can have a win-win. When the one who is seeking holiness rejects Halloween altogether, can look at their brother and sister who are trying to redeem it in such a way, doing it in such a way that it doesn't glorify evil, we can have a win. And the one who is actually participating in Halloween, trying to redeem it, can look at their brother who pursues holiness by rejecting Halloween altogether, can honor and respect what they're doing. We can have a win-win situation. So I don't think Halloween is something Christians should fight about too much, but I do think it's an opportunity for those who are inclined to use Halloween to advance God's glory. Thank you very much. God bless you.